You know what I've noticed after years of teaching adult English learners? The people who sound confident in English are not always the ones with the best grammar. A lot of them still make mistakes. They still forget words. They still say things like, how do you say, and then they keep going. The real difference is that they don't panic. They don't freeze. They don't turn a small mistake into a full emotional crisis in their head. And if you're listening to me right now, there's a good chance you know that feeling. You're in a meeting, or you're at a restaurant, or you're talking to someone at work, and you're doing fine, and then suddenly you hear your own voice and you think, that sounded weird, or I used the wrong tense, or I don't know the perfect word. And the conversation keeps moving, but you feel like you're falling behind, and your brain starts translating, and you start trying to fix everything in real time. And now you're not really present anymore. You're not connecting. You're performing. You're surviving. That's why today matters. Because the topic is not really English. Not at first. It's your mind. It's the way you train your mind every day, on purpose, the same way successful people do. Not successful, like celebrity successful. I mean people who handle pressure well, people who stay calm, people who recover quickly after a mistake, people who don't need everything to be perfect before they speak. And here's the honest truth. Most people don't fail in English because they don't know enough. They fail because they don't feel safe making mistakes out loud. They don't trust themselves to recover. They think one mistake means they're not good. But successful people, in any area of life, they train something deeper than skills. They train their mind, and they train it every day in small ways that look boring, but they change everything. So, I want to tell you a story today. A simple story, very realistic, very human. And as you listen, I want you to notice something. Not just the vocabulary, not just the phrases. Notice the mindset. Notice the mental habits. Notice what this person does when things go wrong, when they feel pressure, when they feel tired, when they feel insecure. Because that is where fluent English actually starts. Not with perfect sentences, with a mind that stays open. There's a guy I'll call David, not his real name, but I've met a lot of Davids. Early 30s, smart, hardworking, moved to the US for a job in tech. On paper, his English was good. He could read. He could write emails. He could understand meetings, mostly. But speaking was his problem. Not because he had nothing to say, because he had too much to say, and he couldn't choose fast enough. Every sentence in his head had 5 versions, and he tried to pick the best one, and while he was choosing, the moment was gone. He told me something I hear all the time. When I speak, I feel like I'm taking a test. And I asked him, when you're talking to your friends in your language, does it feel like a test? And he laughed, because of course not. In his language, he was funny, he was quick, he had personality. In English, he felt like a robot. And I get it, that gap hurts. It's not just language, it's identity. It's like your real personality is stuck behind a wall. Now here's where the story gets interesting. David didn't want to become perfect. He wanted to become free. That was his word, free. He wanted to walk into a room and speak without his heart racing. He wanted to tell a story without planning it like a presentation. He wanted to disagree in a meeting without sounding angry or weak. He wanted to be himself. And this is where a lot of English learners make a mistake. They think the solution is more vocabulary, more grammar, more pronunciation practice. And yes, those things help. But David was already doing those things. He watched videos, he listened to podcasts, he studied, he was doing the work. But the real problem was what happened inside him when he opened his mouth. The mental pressure, the fear of sounding stupid, the fear of being judged, the fear of not finding the word fast enough. So we talked about something I talk about with my students all the time. The idea that your English level is not the same as your speaking confidence. They are connected, but they are not the same thing. You can have high English knowledge and low speaking confidence, and you can also have medium English knowledge and high speaking confidence. And in real life, confidence usually wins because confident people keep going. They keep interacting, they get more practice, they learn faster, they build relationships, they take opportunities, they don't hide. Right around here, let me say something quick, because if you've been listening and you're thinking, okay, this is me, I want this, then stay with me. And also, if you want more episodes like this, you can subscribe, and if the video helps you, like it so you can find it again later. And I'd honestly love to hear your situation too. What's the hardest moment for you in English? Is it meetings, small talk, phone calls, presentation? If you share it in the comments, I read those, and it helps me make episodes that actually fit your real life. So David decided to do something different. Not bigger, not more intense, different. He started training his mind the way successful people do. And I'm going to explain what he did, but I want you to notice something as I describe it. None of it is magic. None of it is expensive. It's mostly invisible. It's small mental habits, repeated daily, until your brain starts to believe a new story about you. The first habit was what I call morning language, and it has nothing to do with English at first. David used to wake up and immediately check his phone, messages, news, work chat, email. And within 5 minutes, his brain was already in stress mode, already behind, already trying to catch up. And when your brain starts the day like that, you carry that feeling into everything, especially speaking, especially English. So he changed one thing. For the first 10 minutes of the day, no phone, just a coffee, a shower, getting ready, whatever. And during that time, he practiced calm thoughts on purpose. Not positive quotes, not fake motivation, just calm, realistic thoughts. Things like, I don't need to be perfect today, I just need to be clear. Or, it's okay if I search for words, people can wait. Or, I can handle awkward moments. I've handled them before. And at first that sounds too simple, right? Like, Tom, come on, how can that change my English? But here's what successful people understand. Your brain believes what you repeat. Your brain follows what you practice. If you practice panic, you get better at panic. If you practice calm, you get better at calm. If you practice perfectionism, you get better at stopping yourself. If you practice recovery, you get better at recovery. David started treating his mind like training a muscle. If you only train when you're in an emergency, you won't be strong when it matters. So he trained in quiet moments. He trained when it was easy so that when it was hard, he had a pattern. The second habit was something I gave him, and I'll be honest, a lot of students hate it at first. It's called speak before you're ready. Not in public, not in meetings, not in high-pressure situations. I mean in small, private moments. He started talking to himself out loud, in English, for 2 minutes a day. Just 2 minutes. While making breakfast, while walking to the train, while folding laundry. And the rule was simple. No stopping, no fixing, no restarting the sentence to make it better. If he made a mistake, he had to keep going, because that's the real skill, keeping going. Most learners practice English like writing. They say a sentence in their head, they edit it, they polish it, and then they speak. That's not speaking. That's writing with your mouth. Real speaking is messy. Real speaking is first draft. Native speakers speak in first draft all day long. We change direction in the middle of a sentence. We use simple words. We repeat ourselves. We say, basically, we keep the conversation alive. So David practiced first draft speaking, and at the beginning it sounded rough. He told me, "I sound so stupid." And I told him, "No, you sound like a human talking without a script. That's what you want." The third habit was mental labeling. This is one of the biggest differences I see between people who grow fast and people who stay stuck. When something uncomfortable happens, like you forget a word, you mispronounce something, someone says, "Sorry, what?" Your brain creates a meaning. It creates a story. And most learners create a painful story. They think I'm stupid, or I'm embarrassing myself, or I'll never be fluent. But successful people label the moment differently. They don't pretend it's fun. They don't pretend it's not awkward. They just name it in a calm way. David started doing this in his head. He'd say, "That was a normal mistake," or "That was a word gap," or "That was a pronunciation slip." He stopped calling it failure. He stopped calling it proof. Because that's the problem. Many learners treat mistakes like proof that they don't belong. Successful people treat mistakes like data, like feedback, like information. And here's what happened. About 3 weeks into this, David had a meeting, small meeting, maybe 6 people, and the topic was something he actually knew well. But meetings are fast, right? People jump in, people interrupt politely, people talk over each other sometimes. It's not rude, it's just energy. And David wanted to make a point. He started speaking, and halfway through his sentence, he forgot the word he needed. You know that feeling. Your brain goes blank, and you can almost see the word, but it's not there. Old David would have stopped. He would have apologized. He would have said, "Sorry, I can't explain." He would have gotten quiet, and then later, he would have been angry at himself for hours. But this time, he did something different. He paused for half a second, and then he used simple words. He described the idea instead of the perfect word. He said something like, "It's when the system gets slower because too many requests come at the same time." And someone else said, "Oh, you mean bottleneck?" And David said, "Yes, exactly, bottleneck." That moment right there is everything. That is fluent behavior, not perfect vocabulary. Fluent behavior is the ability to keep the message moving forward, even when your English is not cooperating. And the room didn't judge him. The room helped him. Because that's what people do when you stay calm. People match your energy. If you act ashamed, people feel awkward. If you act normal, people act normal. After the meeting, he told me, "I can't believe I did that. It felt like I jumped off a cliff and I survived." That's what mental training does. It doesn't remove fear completely. It teaches you that fear is not a stop sign. It's just a feeling. Now, I want to bring this back to you because maybe you're thinking, "Okay, Tom, but I'm not David. My situation is different." Maybe you live in a country where you don't speak English every day. Or maybe you do speak English every day, but only with clients, and you feel pressure. Or maybe your coworkers are all native speakers and they speak fast and use slang. Or maybe you're a parent, you're busy, you're tired, you don't have time for long study sessions. That's exactly why this daily mind training matters. Because it's small, it fits into real life. And it's not about being impressive. It's about being steady. Successful people, the ones you admire, they usually have a few quiet habits that keep them stable. They don't wait until they feel confident. They act in a way that creates confidence. So, let's talk about one of the biggest mental habits that changes your English fast. It's the habit of choosing meaning over form. Meaning over form. Form is grammar, perfect word choice, perfect pronunciation, perfect sentence structure. Meaning is the message, what you're trying to do. Are you trying to ask a question, make a point, tell a story, build trust, be friendly, be clear? When you focus on form, you get tight, you get careful, you get slow, you get quiet. When you focus on meaning, you get expressive, you get flexible, you become someone people can actually connect with. I see this all the time with intermediate and advanced learners. They know too much, they have too many rules in their head, so they hesitate, and they think the hesitation is because they need more English, but usually the hesitation is because they need permission to be imperfect. Let me give you a real-life example. Imagine you're at work and someone says, can you give us a quick update? And you start thinking, quick update, okay, I need to use the right tense, I need to use present perfect, I need to sound professional, I need to not sound childish. And now your brain is full. You're not thinking about the update anymore, you're thinking about your performance. Meaning over form would sound more like this in your head. What's the main point? What's the one thing they need to know? What happened? What's happening now? What's next? And you say it with simple language. Simple is not childish. Simple is clear. Native speakers respect clear. David started practicing this at home. He would take any topic and explain it in 3 simple sentences. Not because he wanted to speak like a robot, because he wanted to train clarity. Clarity creates confidence. When you feel clear, your voice gets stronger, your pace gets smoother, you breathe differently. And that brings me to another thing. Successful people train every day, whether they realize it or not. They train their relationship with time. They don't rush everything. They don't try to win the conversation by being the fastest speaker in the room. They pause. They let silence happen. They give themselves time to think. A lot of English learners feel that silence is dangerous, like silence means failure, like silence means, I don't know. But in American English, especially in professional settings, a short pause can actually make you sound more confident. It can make you sound thoughtful. It can make you sound like you're choosing your words on purpose. So, David practiced pausing. He practiced starting slower. He practiced breathing before speaking. That sounds small, but it changes your whole presence. When you rush, your pronunciation gets worse. When you rush, your brain searches for words in panic. When you slow down just a little, everything improves. Now, I want to talk about a big block I see in adult learners. This idea that you need to earn the right to speak. Like, you need to reach a certain level first. Like, you need to fix your accent first. Like, you need to stop making basic mistakes first. But real life doesn't work that way. Life gives you moments now, meetings now, opportunities now, friendships now, and you either show up or you hide. Successful people don't wait until they feel ready. They prepare, yes. They learn, yes. But they also show up while they're still learning. I remember a student years ago, she told me, I will start speaking more when I'm more fluent. And I said, that's like saying, I'll start swimming when I'm already dry. Speaking is what makes you fluent. You can't think your way into fluency. You have to speak your way into fluency. David had a moment that really changed him. He was at a work happy hour, not mandatory, but, one of those social events where people build relationships. And he almost didn't go because small talk is the hardest, right? Meetings have structure. Small talk is like walking into the ocean. No clear beginning, no clear ending, lots of little jokes and cultural references. He went anyway. And at one point, someone asked him a simple question. "Where are you from originally?" he answered. And then the person asked, "Do you miss it?" And David paused, and he felt that pressure again because the real answer was emotional. He missed his family. He missed certain foods. He missed the feeling of being understood without effort. Old David would have given a short answer. Yes, sometimes. And then he would have escaped. But this time he said something real, in simple English. "Yeah, I miss my family a lot, and honestly, I miss feeling like I can express my personality easily. In English, I can do my job, but sometimes I feel quiet." And the person said, "That makes total sense. Moving countries is hard." And then they had a real conversation. Not small talk, a human conversation. When David told me that story, what hit me was not his English. It was his courage to be real in imperfect English. That is what makes people like you. That is what builds connection. People don't connect with perfect grammar. They connect with honesty, warmth, humor, curiosity. This is why mindset matters more than perfection. Because perfection is lonely. Perfection keeps you safe, but it also keeps you invisible. Now, I'm going to say something that might be a little uncomfortable, but I mean it in a helpful way. If you want to speak English confidently, you have to stop protecting yourself so much. You have to be willing to sound a little silly sometimes. You have to be willing to be misunderstood sometimes. You have to be willing to ask people to repeat. You have to be willing to say, "Let me say that again," or "That's not the word I want, but you know what I mean." And I know that's hard, especially if you're a competent adult, especially if you're successful in your job, especially if people respect you in your language. It can feel humiliating to sound less intelligent in English. But you are not less intelligent. You are simply operating in a language where your tools are limited. That's all. Successful people train humility without shame. They accept being a beginner again, without making it mean something bad about them. David also started doing something that I personally love, because it helps you think in English. He started collecting what I call ready phrases, not fancy idioms, not slang that will sound unnatural, just normal phrases that native speakers use to buy time and keep the conversation smooth. Things like, "Let me think for a second," or "That's a good question," or "The way I see it is," or "What I mean is," or actually, let me rephrase that. When you have these phrases in your mouth, you stop panicking when you need time. You stop going silent. You stay in control of the rhythm. And this is important. Thinking in English does not mean you never translate. Translation sometimes happens. That's normal. Thinking in English means your first reaction starts to be English more often. It means you build pathways. And you build pathways by repeating real phrases in real contexts. So David would practice those phrases out loud, not like a robot, but like he was in a meeting. He'd say, "That's a good question. Let me think for a second." And then he'd answer. He trained the whole moment, not just the answer. That's how successful people train. They don't just train the easy part, they train the stressful part in a safe environment. Now, I want to talk about something deeper, the identity shift. This is where real confidence comes from. A lot of learners have an identity of someone who is not good at English. Even if they are good, they still carry that story. And every time they make a mistake, the story gets stronger. See, I'm not good at English. See, I can't speak. See, I always forget words. But David started building a different identity. Not, I'm fluent, not, I'm perfect. Just, I'm someone who communicates. I'm someone who can handle conversations. I'm someone who keeps going. And you might think, okay, but how do I build that identity? You build it by collecting evidence. Small wins, one moment at a time, not big dramatic changes. Maybe today your win is that you asked someone to repeat and you didn't apologize 5 times. Maybe your win is that you spoke in a meeting even though your sentence was not perfect. Maybe your win is that you told a short story and you didn't stop when you forgot a word. Maybe your win is that you made a joke and it wasn't perfect, but people understood your energy. Successful people pay attention to wins, not because they're arrogant, because they're training their brain to notice progress. If you only notice mistakes, your brain learns that English equals pain. And then, of course, you avoid it. Of course, you freeze. Your brain is trying to protect you, so you have to train your brain to connect English with growth, with movement, with life. One day, David came to class, and he looked different. Not like a different person, but lighter. And I asked him what happened. He said he had to present something small, just a few minutes, nothing huge. And he had practiced it. But during the presentation, someone asked a question he didn't expect. And he didn't understand it at first. The question was fast. Maybe the person used a phrase he didn't know, and he did something that used to scare him. He said, "Sorry, can you say that one more time in a different way?" And the person repeated it more clearly, and David answered. That moment might sound normal to you, but for him, it was massive. Because in his head, asking someone to repeat meant he was exposed. It meant he was weak. It meant he didn't belong. But what actually happened in reality? Nothing bad. The meeting continued. People respected him. In fact, most people respect that because it shows you care about accuracy and you're not pretending. That's another success habit. Successful people are not afraid to clarify. They're not afraid to ask. They don't fake understanding to protect their ego. They protect the mission. They protect the outcome. They want the message to be clear. If you take one mindset from this episode, take this. Your goal is not to sound like a native speaker. Your goal is to be an effective communicator. And effective communicators do simple things. They clarify, they summarize, they check understanding, they keep going. Now let's talk about daily training again, because I want you to leave with something practical, something you can actually feel, not a homework assignment, just a way of living. Successful people train their minds every day by controlling their input. They are careful what they feed their brain. And for English learners, that means if your only English input is stressful input, like meetings, emails from your boss, news that makes you anxious, then English becomes connected with pressure. Your body feels it, so you need some English that feels safe, some English that feels friendly, a show you like, a podcast like this, a YouTube channel that feels calm, conversations with someone kind. When English feels safe, your brain opens. When your brain opens, you learn faster. David started ending his day with 10 minutes of easy English. Not study, just listening. Something interesting, something light. And he told me it helped him sleep better because his brain stopped associating English with stress. Another thing successful people do is they rehearse the person they want to be. That might sound strange, but you do it already in your language. You imagine a conversation before it happens. You think about what you might say. You play it in your head. So David started rehearsing in English. Before a meeting, he would imagine himself speaking calmly, not perfectly, calmly. He would imagine making a mistake and recovering. He would imagine someone not understanding and him rephrasing. He didn't just imagine success, he imagined recovery. And that is a huge difference. Many learners only imagine perfect English, and then real life happens, and real life is messy, and they feel disappointed. But if you imagine recovery, then when something goes wrong, your brain says, "Oh, this is the part we practiced." Successful people don't just train for ideal conditions, they train for real conditions. I also want to address the fear of judgment because that fear is real. Adults are not kids. Adults have pride. Adults have reputations. Adults have jobs. Adults don't want to look foolish. But here's something I want you to remember. Most people are not judging your English as much as you think. They're thinking about themselves. They're thinking about what they're going to say next. They're thinking about their own problems, their own day. And if someone does judge you, if someone is impatient, if someone is rude, that says more about them than about you. You are doing something brave. You are operating in a second language. That is not small. David had one experience where someone corrected him in a way that felt a little sharp. Not helpful, more like showing off. And it bothered him. He replayed it in his head for days. And then he said something really important. He said, "I don't want one person's attitude to control my confidence." That is the mindset of someone becoming successful, not just in English, but in life. Because if your confidence depends on everyone being kind, you will always be anxious. But if your confidence depends on your own values, your own effort, your own growth, then you become stable. So, if you take another idea from today, take this. Decide what kind of English speaker you are, not what level you are. What kind of speaker? Are you someone who communicates with warmth? Are you someone who asks good questions? Are you someone who stays calm? Are you someone who keeps going? Choose that identity, and then practice it in small moments. Near the end of our time working together, David told me something that I still think about. He said, "My English didn't suddenly become amazing, but I stopped being afraid of it. And now I actually want to speak." That's the real win, when you want to speak. When you stop seeing English as a place where you lose points and start seeing it as a place where you connect with people. So, as you go into your day, I want you to try something simple. The next time you speak English, make one goal only. Not perfect grammar, not perfect pronunciation. One goal. Stay in the conversation. Keep going. If you forget a word, describe it. If you make a mistake, let it go. If you need time, use a ready phrase. If you feel nervous, slow down a little. And afterwards, don't only review what went wrong, also notice what went right. Because something went right. You showed up. And if you're thinking, "Yeah, but Tom, I still want to be fluent," of course you do. That's a beautiful goal. Just remember that fluency is not a finish line. It's a feeling. It's the feeling that you can handle yourself in English. And that feeling comes from daily mental training. Small habits, calm thoughts, recovery practice, meaning over form, progress over perfection. Successful people train their minds every day, not because they're special, but because they understand something simple. Your life becomes what you practice. If you practice fear, fear grows. If you practice courage, courage grows. If you practice silence, silence grows. If you practice speaking, speaking grows. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to be willing. And you can train willingness. You can train calm. You can train recovery. One day at a time. Keep going. Your English is already more alive than you think.